welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. Thank you all for coming. And I would like to give a special welcome to our guest, Carlos Tabernaberri. I've been practicing.
Tabernaberri.
Tabernaberri. It's very
That's
simple. Karren will be joining us a little later. She's calling in from South Australia, but I'll hand over to Renee, who's going to host this evening. After my last effort, we went for 2 hours, which is way too long. Everyone was dropping off. So take it away.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn. And yeah, I'll be a little bit of a gatekeeper on the time with this one. But firstly, Carlos, thank you so much for being so flexible with your time and joining us tonight. And I certainly value the conversation that we had a few weeks ago when I came out to visit you at Whispering Acres. It was an absolute delight to see you face to face rather than on the Zoom. You know, I also want to say that your book that you gave me to reading it once is certainly not enough. And I guess what I took away from the book after digesting quite a bit of it, it's so much more of a philosophy rather than a book that's full of, you know, tricks and tools. And I think that's a real mind shift in a lot of people's approach to educating or training a horse, whatever word you want to use for it. And it's something that I would really like to be able to explore further with you in terms of that philosophy rather than tricks and tools, which a lot of people like to use on a horse. So on that, I would just like you to tell me just a little bit about your background with horses and how you became sympathetic and understanding towards the Brumbies in Australia.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And yes, it was nice talking to you when we met. So it's always good to have that personal sort of one-on-one as well, which is nice. Basically, in a nutshell, I grew up in Argentina until age 15 when my parents migrated here. I am a fourth generation horseman. I come from a place where traditions, the horse is king, but the traditions are very strong. And I grew up seeing the opposite, I guess, of what I do today. I used to say that I learned a lot of the part of the traditions, some of the classical methods that Spanish and French influence, you know, in Argentina with the working horse. But growing up seeing horses being literally broken in. I mean, in Argentina, to give an example, most horses run wild to the age of 6, and then they like brought in and literally broken. It's more like a showmanship than horsemanship. So at a young age, I mean, I didn't even want to think about training horses. After all, I always say you don't train them to do anything. You're trying to communicate with that horse, the human intent, and try to work with that horse's nature. So I made a promise to the horse at a young age that if I ever was going to touch a horse, I was going to do the opposite of what I've seen. So that's what the book, as you know, on the back cover, it's a very young me there. But it's on the back.
Yes,
I wanted the horse at the front. I wanted the horse. Yeah, no, we don't want to see that. It's sad when I look at that. But so the book was an introduction to people who who I was and that philosophy that you mentioned really well, because I never called it a training method. I was never one to have the horse fit the mold of a training method, and you see a lot of horses suffer through the process, even in very different disciplines with different tags and names. And sometimes it's trying to make the square peg fit the round hole. So it's about working with each individual horse and his individuality. While we know, yes, the language is universal, and especially when it comes to the Brumbies in particular, where they have a blueprint that's a lot stronger than, say, a domesticated horse or a horse that was born under domestic situation. So that was a result, like I said, of what I do today. So I have that lightness and the softness. I don't rely on tools. I don't rely on gimmicks. I rely totally on the feedback that the horse is giving me as I train that horse. So in a nutshell, there's so much more I could say, but that's pretty much what I made a promise. I never break a promise.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to work with horses, and I did the opposite of what I've seen. And then the horse was my teacher. I always said, you know, a lot of people claim to be self-taught. I always said I'm horse-taught. So the horse told me when I was going too quick and when I was going too slow. And after many horses and experience, that's why I'm here today. So
yeah. And I guess that's, you know, why we're very interested in your approach, because, you know, all too often we not only see domestic horses being broken, but we see a lot of these Brumbies being broken as well, with, I guess, a lot of, you know, different ideologies and romanticisms about how Brumbies can be brought into our domestic world. And I guess that's one of the questions that I've got for you, is that the transition that these wild horses will go through from their wild environment into one that's so much more structured, contained, like, you know, their ability to cope with all that. And you as their educator, how do you best deal with the Brumbie coming into our domestic world, Carlos?
I think, you know, this applies to Brumbies in general, but I think to our horses as well, that I always said, you know, if you want infinite patience, immediate results. So, and with the Brumbies is, if we have a horse that is being domesticated or born in a domestic environment, which is used to a lot more the surroundings compared to a Brumbie, but his patience is crucial with these horses, and they cannot be rushed. And like I said, they're born with a blueprint, as say a horse born in a domestic environment does not have. I mean, so I always say, if the horse can read you like a book, a Brumbie can already have downloaded you pretty much, you know. So they pick up on the slightest gesture or movement, but also how you're feeling, the attitude that you bring to the training, pretty much. So it takes time. You know, there's one thing that I say, you know, if you go slow and smooth, will become fast, and that applies to the Brumbies. You have to go very slow, very smoothly, but then the results will be quick and fast. And by that I mean that the horse then will give you that feedback to let you know where you're at with that horse. But number one thing is, you know, is to develop that trust, you know, not to ask too much, you know, and ask and be content with little that the horse might give you, you know. So when it applies to these Brumbies, the responses are minute sometimes, but the progress can be very quick later on down the track. So I always tell people, you know, it's just like, you have to have a thorough understanding of horses in general, but just with the Brumbies, to understand that they're not your domestic horse. You know, they're foreign to where you know, to the environment that they never seen most, you know, a lot of people, or they're not used to seeing people, say, on a daily basis, or especially depending on the areas that these horses are coming from. And when they get trapped or caught, which is a terrible word to use, but that's what they're doing, these horses, the first experience are really bad. And you know, the old saying goes, you only have one chance to make a good impression. So with the Brumbies, I find that when they come to our domestic scenario, someone takes these horses on, that these horses, you have to go actually work pretty hard on your trust, because the first impressions on humans have not been that great.
Yeah, and building towards getting that goal of trust, there's obviously quite a lot of steps prior to that. Can you maybe just talk about those steps, Carlos?
Well, I've got a little formula that said, you know, we all want trust, obedience, and respect. You would have seen it probably in the book. But in order to have that, we have to have that confidence. And confidence is not, as the horses mentioned that in the book as well, horses don't read resumes. The horse is not interested in what I have done, what I've trained, what I've done, how many horses I worked. It's just, so they're not interested in the resume. That's only just a human thing. So that confidence is actually having the confidence to handle these horses, but also having the skills to work with these horses, obviously. So it's confident. Consistency goes without saying. So consistency is not sometimes, it's not most of the time. It's 100% every single time. So you have to kind of prepare before you work with these horses. So kind leadership goes without saying. You have to be kind, and it's a big difference between being aggressive and passive. So you have to be assertive. Assertive is you're fair and just. You're not passive, where the horse might have adverse reactions to what you're doing, and then people go from 0 to 100 and then you become aggressive, and that's not how you're going to break through the mind of these horses. And if we can do that confidence, the consistent, the kind of leadership, then we start developing that trust. Obedience in English is a very strong word, but obedience means that the horse responds to what you're doing, and definitely the respect. There are a lot of horses out there, a lot of Brumbies that are very obedient, we can say, and I've come across many of them, but there's no trust and there's no respect. So the horse is obedient because it's pretty much on that training dictatorship, I call it, where the horse has no say other than he must do what I say, and that's not how we want to approach these horses. So
yeah, well, I guess, you know, if you get to that stage of a horse, it's, you know, quite a bit of learned helplessness from the horse because they haven't had 100%. That confident or consistent as part of their introduction to people. So sort of going on from that, Carlos, the Brumbies that you've been mostly involved with, where do they come from?
Well, the ones that I've got and the ones that I work with from Central Australia, so they around the Kings Creek area. So from Tempe Downs, which some people won't be familiar with that area. These horses, they were the results of a master, and the master was done because ABC TV, the cameras were there, so they had camels, horses, and you name it, and all these Brumbies put in the same yard. These little Brumbies were orphaned as a result. And I had a friend of mine that in the husband that were working up in one of the stations up there, and they said, we just rescue these horses. You think it can help me, and would you come up? So I made 4 trips of a week length, pretty much up in Central Australia, and we started sort of handling these horses, building that trust to the point that could be halted and led softly, and without coercion, of course. You were just getting the horses to understand that the human is not the enemy, that we're not all the same when it comes to training. And a lot of these horses were exposed to pretty rough handling. Like I said, they were put on in the yard with camels, bulls, horses, they all, you know, sort of crushing. There was mares that died, foals that died. It was quite horrific.
That's traumatic.
And my good friend Andrew and Chris, they said, would you come up and help us and see, you know, we can rescue these horses? And that's how it all evolved. But I'm also very familiar with people that have Brumbies from, say, the Snowy area of Victoria, New South Wales as well. So, but yeah, my Brumbie is actually from Central Australia. She was found in a clay pit, you know. So she was, and the other little one was suckling from a dead mother. So it was quite quite sad.
Yeah.
But So that's how these horses are viewed, unfortunately.
Yeah, just have to ask, was this muster as a result of a culling procedure or plan, or was it just something that was done? Was it a government thing or was it a private thing?
No, this was a private thing. Okay. And it was just like for, I guess they had dollar signs on these horses because they were going out to South Australia to the knackeries, you know, the meat work. So it was just a way of getting him out of the area.
Yes.
And just they became dollar signs, you know, unfortunately. But it wasn't just to be trained and, you know, sort of domesticated to a point. And it was more just for the sales. So that's
well, thankfully they called you to help some of those out, Carlos, to find a better way. So that's a hard story to listen to, but for some of them, you can certainly make a difference. So I guess, you know, from there, you know, the Brumby comes into your world. What would be the most important advice you could give someone that's maybe considering to rehome a Brumby?
Number one is just, you know, sort of get good advice, get someone that you trust, get someone that's got the knowledge of these horses, because they are very different, as you know, to say a domestic horse that might be born in someone's property. I would say just do good research and make sure that before you even think about taking one of these horses on, that your place is set up for these horses. I mean, just from experience, I get a lot of calls where, again, someone, because they want to do the right thing and save one of these horses, or for the romanticism of it, you know, they take one of these horses on, and we all good intentions, but the horses end up jumping fences or going through wire fences because the area is not set up.
Yeah.
I had calls where these horses came from organizations where the horses were sold to people, you know, and they have the halters left in the heads, and then these horses cannot be approached. And then as they grow up, obviously the head gets big and the halter doesn't grow any better. So it's quite traumatic to the injuries that these horses have. So I always say just, make sure that you're prepared, make sure you got good advice, a good team of people that you trust, that they have experience with these horses, but also that the place is set up. I mean, a lot of these horses, if you're taking horses from the wild, they caught and come to you, you might need big yards so they can move around, but also they maybe have to be 6 foot fences high, you know, because they would jump and push fences. So the survival instinct is huge. So they're constantly on that self-preservation mode. So in your domestic environment, the job is to make sure that they don't feel that they have to be in a self-preservation mode, and the place is set up rightly so for a Brumbie, not for a just domestic horse. So.
Yeah. So when, I mean, in the ideal world for a Brumbie to come into domestic life, I mean, as you said, facilities do play quite a large part in it. And would you would transition the Brumbie from a smaller yard and then just slowly build them up? Like
absolutely. Yeah. So I would say if you to set up yards, but not, like, once again, I've been to places where these horses are running in 5 acres, which that's why people have difficulties in catching them. They put a little pressure and jumping fences. So they get on roads and they get on other people's properties. You know, so you got to set up sort of high fences, but enough room for the horse to get used to having you around, not where the horse feels trapped, but also that is designed so the horse cannot hurt itself. You know, for example, you know, sharp fence posts or panels that are, you know, like a sharp, or so, you know, my yards that I had here it turns into a round yard, a huge round yard, and then they're like soft rounded panels, so these horses, you know, they can't help themselves, you know, even if they push through. But yeah, not small enough so they can use to have you within the, you know, a vicinity of what you need to do. I would say the best advice is just go and check the water, go and check the feed, and that's what I've done with all of them. I don't even I look at them barely. I just pretend that I'm kind of ignoring them, and they just get them curious. And Brumbies, like all horses, they can't be curious and scared at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
So these horses already been scared. Your job is to make them curious about you. And curious is not just going with a carrot and things that are not, you know, nobody's ever fed them in the wild. You know, their mother doesn't chase them. No. To be fair, they have to come to their mom, you know. So so that doesn't work. It's short-lived, and that's not how you develop trust, you know. So my best advice is when you have them at your place and you got this correct setup for them with clean water and good feed, and they're not just standing on a small yard full of mud, that you just go about your business, clean those yards. That's what I used to do. Just go with a wheelbarrow, you know, pick up the manure, check the water, feed, and just walk away. And I've done that. You know, you do that for as long as it takes until you start to see this horse kind of take a few steps towards you as you walk away. So again, my best advice is get him curious, don't get him scared, don't put pressure, don't let anyone with a regimen come and say, oh, well, I've done this, I've done that. And next minute you have these horses climbing over fences, you know, so all getting defensive to the point that can be dangerous, because self-preservation kicks in when you trap them. They're going to react. So we want to make these horses responsive, not reactive, you know.
Yeah, because I guess, you know, we have to all bear in mind that every Brumbie that, you know, comes into any domestic world, they've either been trapped or they've been chased. So they've started off.
Well, that I never seen. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, the first impression of humans is like you run them up with, you know, with these helicopters, motorbikes, chasing with, you know, with horses into yards. You know, I mean, the experience of my Brumbies is that's what they had. They were just like imagine having camels, bulls, horses from different herds, different mobs coming into a yard, and you got stallions, you got mares, you got foals and yearlings. It was a disaster. So the first impression is not a good one. Like I said, you get one good chance to make a good impression. So
yeah, and I guess
speaking on those terms, there's one question that has come through from Jay Smith. Sorry to cut across you there, but his comment was, or Jay, his or her comment, also, if you have an older wise domestic mare to put with the Brumbies, with it can it really help, or what do you think about that, Carlos?
Yeah, we know that they herd animals, but once again, you got a domesticated horse, which, yes, is a horse, and the language, like I said, is universal. But I believe that I would have that horse, say, on the other side, if possible, or set up a yard where these other horses on the other side of the yard. So neither horse becomes defensive, because and then the horse starts to see you as that person that is going around the business. And again, it's about creating curiosity. I've seen people do that. To answer that question, and then you have, especially if it's a young Brumby, that might try to suckle from that old mare and then get kicked, or so you have to be really careful with that. So my suggestion would be to set up a yard that is set up, like I said, tall yard within a paddock or within vicinity of where the other domestic horse is, so they can have that interaction in a way. Still, they are herd animals, but to put them straight away with a domesticated horse, I personally don't do that. I just do that a lot later. So my Brumby now is with.
That comes back to what you said. I've noticed, I picked up the saying that of yours, recognize what a horse needs, then it's best to meet those needs. I thought that was lovely. That must really sum it up in a big way, really. And that made me think of that then when you were talking about possibly putting an older mare with a Brumby. It's recognizing what that Brumby needs.
Yeah, and they come from, like I said, a place where the mob structure is very, very different to domestic. So is very, they're lacking that stallion. You can say the stallion is the herd leader, and then you the alpha mare. The stallion becomes the protector of the mare, that leads them, to safety or not. But to put a horse, even if you got a beautiful, kind horse, I mean, there'll be, I would say, it's very hard. And then I've seen these in people making the mistake of doing that, and then having, say, a Brumby with a kind domesticated horse, on a 5-acre paddock. But then it might take that person again, up to, say, 2.5 to 3 before they can even approach and touch that Brumby. So the Brumby might be very attached to that horse, but not become curious about the human. So my advice is first create that curiosity on you, and then, like I said, go slow. And one thing that I put on one of the Facebook posts a while back was in my page that sometimes, that human short-term thinking affects the horse long-term. So, we all want to get these horses, you all want to handle them, you all want to ride them, that short-term, but it's what it's going to do for the horse long-term. I mean, I did not start my Brumby on the saddle until the age of 7. So most people would say, well, that's crazy. But the horse is the kindest. I mean, Renee met that horse. So slow, smooth equals fast. So to answer, hopefully I answered that question for Jade. So.
Yeah, and Jay's response now has been, thank you. That's exactly what we did. Had the domestic mare in the next yard first, while we started the young ones in a round yard next door, and then another call. Absolutely love Carlos, wise advice. So that's,
thank you.
Yeah.
No, well, you're doing the right thing. So and it's nice to, like I said, the people that join you, that's what they want to do. They want to make a difference to these horses, and we know we can't have them all, but you definitely can make a difference to 1 or 2 or 3. We know whatever you can do. So, but yeah, that's my advice, and I'm glad sort of Jay followed on that and did exactly that. So
yeah. Oh, another question from Jay. Are we shifting across to questions now, Renee, or do you have more questions?
I think looking at the time, we've got to be mindful of it. So because Carlos has to catch up on all his
Delayed
training that he's down on doing.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Alvin, for that.
Let's start with the questions.
Okay, well, Jay has responded. I love hearing that. Thank you. 2 of our Brumbies are 4 years old and they are still so young in the mind. Was wondering whether they had stuffed up, I think is what they're asking. But I think, yeah.
Whether they
were young in the mind, whether they're still, I think it was in response, they're 4 years old. I think.
So, yeah, I mean, I wish I was a horse because I wouldn't know how old I am. So the horses don't know how old they are. And then, you know, you have a lot of sort of bush horsemanship where people say, oh, well, they get to sit in the ways. I mean, these horses don't mature until a lot later. Same when I start saying, if it was a domestic horse, a warm blood, or these horses develop, you got to go with the individuality of each horse, especially horses that come from maybe from a drought. So they might be a little bit more runty and they need more time to grow physically and mentally as well. My Brummie was an orphan. So you can see these horses were very tiny. They grow, and then with time and maturity, they develop both physically and mentally to be ready to then continue with the training to be started on the saddle. So I would just work with individuality of each horse, you know, just let him grow. The horse's back on a mare or doesn't develop and fully until about the age of 4.5. On a gelding will be even to 5. So that's when the spinal processes are fully, you know, sort of become bone really. So it's quite criminal, you know, in any sort of both domestic and wild horses or with the Brumbies that people start them on the saddle at the age of 2 and then they're broken down 4-year-old, you know. So yeah, I wouldn't worry so much how old they are. They don't really know. It's just that if you maintain that nice training and you're making progress, everything will become trivial. When I start horses on the saddle, is actually the first time I ride him, it's like there's not dust clouds and it's not showmanship, it's horsemanship. It just should be like it just happens. It's a transition of your steps of training, and it shouldn't be any backing and rearing and carrying on. You know, the horse just make the transition nicely because you've taken that time. So.
Yeah, and I guess it's important to point out too, Carlos, that not only such a big change in environment where these wild horses are coming from, but also too that, you know, their whole family bands have been completely disintegrated. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's got a huge impact on their, you know, state of mind and their confidence as well as to where they're at, because there's not a lot of people that are able to rehome an entire mob to keep those family dynamics together. So, yeah. You know, people are getting 1 or they may be getting 2, which would be great to have, you know, at least 2 of the family come in. But yeah, that's a big consideration too for their mental state, is to consider what they've also lost from their family mob, as well as their environment. So giving them that time is really important.
Yeah, because that goes back to one of the earlier questions where putting them with other horses, that it doesn't duplicate the herd. So in essence, we have to become the mob. We have to become the curiosity for that horse, because then we can introduce him to anything. I would say it's not about, you know, whether the horse gets on the trailer. It's not about getting the horse familiar with uncomfortable environments. It's about us and how we do things. So just get him to, you become that center of attention for that horse, and then you can introduce the horse slowly to, we can say, a rare domestic environment for them.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, that's good. Are there any more questions there, Marilyn, that have?
I think a great deal. Well, Jay's very happy with what they're hearing. Great compliment to you, Renee. And I think that was about, we don't know what a Brumbie has been through before they come to you. So it is about being responsive to how they are when they come. And yep, absolutely, Renee, well said. So there's no more questions. I think, well, I know here we go. Hi, Carlos. I have ordered an Indian hackamore for our youngest that my wife will be starting soon. When would you be inclined to introduce it? Towards the end as part of the starting process, or when the filly is a little less green. Not a Brumbie filly, but the next one after her will be. Would that make any difference on when to introduce? So there's sort of two questions there, isn't there? When would you? I have ordered an Indian hackamore for our youngest.
I would have to, I don't use hackamore, so I get a beardless bridle that I can made up, which is more like a little, it is all based on direct rein, and it's away from the nerves of the horse's face. So I don't introduce, I start working obviously on the groundwork and the softness. You know, I don't use whip sticks, tools. A lot of people might not be familiar how it works, but it's that absolute gentle way of achieving a result for the horse's sake. So in terms of introducing hackamores, beardless bridles, etc., I get the horses really soft first on the lead and the halt. I make sure that they lead well, they stop, they can back up, they have nice natural lateral flexion. I don't introduce them sort of beardless bridles until I start after probably a dozen rides on the saddle. So I might ride him just with a halter and a lead rope, and then I introduce when I'm looking for more precise body position and biomechanics. Then is when I introduce the bridle. I don't use bits, as some people might know. But yeah, I don't use hackamore type sort of or mechanical hackamores. I'm not too sure what they're referring to. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and you know, that's a major point of difference with you, Carlos, that you know you don't rely upon, you know, tricks and tools, and and I think that's a real mind shift for a lot of people as well, to fully understand that what you do and how you use your ability to educate a horse through kindness, and also through just being very understanding of how a horse does learn and the best way to do that. I think that's just the key to building a good relationship.
Well, I'm renowned for one of my sayings, which is, you know, what I always say, that the only bit a horse needs is a bit of understanding, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not about the tools. It's not about, there's a tool for everything. I mean, I think I mentioned to you that my book that's on your background there, that a lot of the horse shops would have loved to carry it, and they said to me that they wouldn't because they were afraid that they wouldn't sell whips and spurs and bits, and which to me is quite sad, because the only one that is missing out is the horse. You know, it doesn't bother me whether the book sells or not. It just, you know, as long as it becomes a bit of a guide for someone to look at the horse a little bit different, and that's what the book has become. So
So Carlos, if people are looking to get your book, how can they do this?
They can go to the website, which is whisperingacres.com, and they go to store and they can order it from there. So it's got a lot of great reviews and good feedback from all around the world. So but I say to people, I've never been a salesman or anything. I'm not interested in advertising, you know, sort of people get to know me because of my works, and that's what I want to do. But I think it'll help a lot of people with looking at the horses and understanding the philosophy behind training, and looking at the horses a little bit different than what they might be used to.
Could I just butt in with a question? Hi, Renee. Hi, Carlos.
Hi, how are you?
I am very interested in how you went training your orphaned Brumbie. I've got two that are now 18 months old that have been hand raised, and I'm very aware that things are going to be very different here with these two fillies.
I mean, I'm not too sure how much you're aware of in terms of my groundwork. My groundwork is not games, is not, it's totally 100% based on horse body language. So it's very hard to explain for me how I do it through a Zoom meeting, but it started with that handling, which you probably already have. I'm not too sure what stage you're with them, or.
Well, I hand raised them from a week old.
Okay, so they're pretty
and they're 18
comfortable
months
with you
now. So the thing is, we're very comfortable. And in regards to further handling later on down the track, I know that I'm in for a real challenge, because well, the horses I've done a wild Brumbie that I got from the mountains a couple of years ago, and just domestic horses. But I was just very interested in how you went starting and working with your hand-raised Brumbie.
So
you had an orphan, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. We had 5 of them, so it wasn't just the one. Yeah, so they were all at the same level. We didn't trust people, and then so it was about creating that curiosity in me, getting him to being able to approach him, gently touch him all over, so that it went from from the neck, all the way down to pick up the feet, all that liberty at this stage, but make sure that they trust you, because you don't want these horses turning around and kicking out in desperation or anything like that.
Right.
They definitely were not.
They were
they
older,
definitely
were they?
They were a little bit. They were actually about 4 months old, so they weren't that old. So they were just being left to fend for themselves, literally. So they were just a lot of them died, obviously, and we managed to save these ones. But so it starts from that, then introducing the halter. I use pressure without a rope from the halter, just with my hand, when it gives you an opportunity to say, rub at him, and then kind of give a little slightly to pressure to come towards me. And before I even put a little rope, I don't use bump ropes. I don't do any of that. So that kind of been the progression, and then it's introducing my groundwork, just and the basic foundations of yielding the hindquarters, the front end, going forward, going backwards, introducing lateral flexion. Then I would introduce a lot more things to. I don't like the word desensitize, but rather familiarize him with spooky stuff, nice and slow, and build. It's about building the confidence, and then. I start horses on the saddle bareback first, eventually when they're old enough. So when I put a saddle, it's quite trivial. So like I said, the saddle is like, it doesn't really matter because they have me on the back first. So, but it's a progression, sort of this, I wouldn't call it, it's not a step-by-step as such, but it's a nice slow process of building from the ground up, just setting a good foundation that is founded on rock, not on sand, not shaky foundation. So. I definitely don't spoil him. I don't hand feed. People ask me all the time and say, do you give the horses treats? I say, yes, I treat him well. And that's what I do. I treat him really well. But I've never seen a mare come to a Brumbie in the wild. And I've watched a lot of horses in the wild all around the world, Mustangs as well. And I've never seen a mum just come to a Brumbie and say, here, take it, have a feed. Are you sure? You better have a drink. That little horse has to come to the mum very politely, use his mouth, not his teeth. The mum will push him away, even give him a little kick sometimes. Now, all the things that horses do, obviously we cannot do because we don't look like a horse. So sometimes I hear people say, oh, well, compared to what a horse does, a smack or a kick when they're naughty, nothing, but it is a lot because we don't look like a horse, So, so we have to be very careful on the approach. And again, you have to have with the only tools you need is your knowledge. So have some knowledge of how horses work, and particularly how Brumbies operate. So you will be.
My problem is that I'm part of the herd. So getting the respect, well, I was bottle raising them, and there's just. We don't have any fear factor. Well, not that you're trying to instill fear.
It goes back. No, but it goes back to that what I was saying, where, of course you had to sort of raise him and stuff, but like a man would never come to a foal to feed it. The foal comes to and she would set boundaries. I've seen Brumbie mares just on the first drink of a newborn foal, give him a little kick, because a little foal was a bit roughed on the mom, or used the teeth rather than the to have a first drink. And then someone said, gee, she's really mean that she doesn't know. She's a really good mom, because these horses have that blueprint, every horse, but Brumbies in particular, where they set that boundary from the beginning. And when that horse gets to about a year and a half, the whole family gets involved with the corrections, and you can say the punishment that they use. It reminds me of me growing up. If I was naughty, I got it from my mom, my uncle, and the neighbors too. So, and that happens with the horses at the age of 1, So,
right. I had to fall.
Yeah, I just want to butt in a little bit. Carlos, we've got
Yeah.
to be mindful of your time because I know
Yeah, that's okay.
you've got
Yeah.
to hit the
I
road.
got about 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got
that's
5
right.
minutes?
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, well, look, there's
5
some more feedback here
Okay.
from Kathy again to thank you again for your advice. She feels better about the time I'm taking with my Brumbies.
Oh, great.
I've had them 4 years and felt a bit guilty about how slow I am. And Kathy has your book and she said it's a wonderful book, a great book.
Fantastic.
So there you go. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Kathy.
So for Kathy, I want to say, well done, Kathy. Look, the only guilt that you're gonna have of going slow is the guilt that other humans will place on you. So, don't feel guilty. I mean, I like I said, we back home horses get broken in over me by traditions, which is traditions don't make things right, but they're over the age of 6, and then the horses retire about over the age of 30. So that's not what you have a Brumby. So the only pressure and the guilt comes from other human beings because people go on Google and YouTube and you always got some trainer telling you this is how it's done, or they'll sell you the 44 DVDs with the stick that comes with it. And if you're not making progress, that means that you're not a good horsewoman, and that's not true. So at the end of the day, you're responsible for your horse and no one else. So I always said, trust me, I went against tradition. It wasn't accepted. Then when I came here, who's the beardless guy that has new beads, who do you think he is? And that never bothered me because I always look for that feedback from the horse. And as long as your horse thinks highly of you and you set those boundaries, like I said, be not assertive, not aggressive, not passive, not spoiling them. And it takes as long as it takes, So the secret to horse training, I'll give it to you right now, to everybody: infinite patience, immediate results. So if you want to be an amazing horseman, be patient, work with it. And if you have to err on the side of going too slow, it's better than hurrying up and tipping the horse over the other side. So
some more
but
feedback.
once again,
Carlos, another feedback from Nikki Alberts. Thank you for your insights, Carlos. I rescue and rehome and have always felt I was too slow to handle compared to others. It felt key to me to build trust and get them to the best possible mental space before they went to their new homes. Now I feel that I'm on the right path.
Yeah, Nikki.
So that's really good.
Yeah, Nikki's probably underselling herself because Nikki has done some amazing Brumbies. In the rehoming process, she does take her time, which is lovely. Thanks, Nikki.
That's good. That's great. I mean, and I hope, like I said, I hope that one day we can somehow meet face to face and maybe have a day where we can chat and discuss things, and even maybe do a bit of a demo on how we do things. And it'll be nice to meet everybody that is in the same path. So look, like I said, the only pressure, like I said, is the one that other people place upon you. So don't become what everybody else thinks that you should become. So just be your own person and demonstrate to that horse that you will take as long as it takes.
Yep, and just keep remembering that CCKLTOR, right?
100%. That's confidence, consistency, and kind leadership. Equal trust, obedience, and respect. So again, if you remember those little horses that you hand raise, or that you might have, and they're really friendly with you, that there's always a big horse trying to come out of that. So I always work even with the yearlings and the foals. I know that one day they're going to be big, strong horses. So I treat them with that respect. And remember that the old saying, inside a wild horse is a domestic horse, and vice versa. So we can make a nice sort of get our horse accustomed, I would say, better than domesticated, accustomed to our world. And in order to do that, it's going to take as long as it takes that horse and yourself. So don't get put under pressure by the experts.
That's great advice. And Carlos, unless there's any more questions, I think it'd be good if Carlos can attend to his other duties now that he has to get on the road.
We've got a lot of compliments.
That's it.
But a few good questions. But that seems to be it for now. So
Thank you, Carlos.
Is there any more before I go? I'm happy to answer one more, and hopefully, like I said, if there's enough interest, we can do a follow-up.
There was a question here. There was a question here from Jay. when training them under saddle, how do you manage the playfulness, exuberance respectfully?
So I always said the horse, that's where you start, if it doesn't happen on the ground, it won't happen on the saddle. So you make sure you contain that. I love horses having an expression, but not to the point that it becomes dangerous. So if you get on the saddle and the horse is thinking you have to be back or rear or kick out, and whichever way where they call it behavior or playfulness, then I believe that maybe we've gone a little bit too fast on that process. So I always said establish that on the ground. I introduce long lines as well. So they're used to, having things around them. And like I said, a good familiarizing program to go with it. But yeah, on this saddle, like I said, just keep things quiet. As I said, even if you're asking a lot of times, be content with the very little they might give you back. So don't push that. Sometimes when the horse doesn't respond, doesn't mean that he's not want to respond. It's just the wheels are ticking, and you got to give him the thinking time, the lick and chew. The most important is that the human licks and chews as well along the process. So it's something that I would have to see to actually see. But if you find that the horse comes to playfulness, whether it's kicking out, rearing, kind of big rooting or whatever they might be doing, then I find that when the horse comes to that point, he's telling you something. It's not always just temperament, or personality. Sometimes it's the horse saying, "Hey, I think we're going a little bit quick. Maybe ease off a little and come back."
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't get the sort of I must get it done get in the way of your. But yeah, it shouldn't. Like I said, for me, when I start horses, it's very trivial. When I get on the back, you pretty much ride, and that's it, because it's like if they've done it their whole life. Because it just, to me, it should happen that way. I grew up seeing the dust clouds, the showmanship. I've done, a lot of equitanas in the past, and I thought it's no point me, my message gets lost here. I'm not interested in being famous. I just want to be a good horseman every day for that horse. So the people that are meant to know me, they get to know me, and so do the horses. So yeah, just again, take it a step back. If you find that he's getting a little bit too playful on the saddle, come one notch down. It doesn't mean that the horse doesn't got the human mind that if you get say, oh, the horse is going to get away with it. They don't reason like we do. So they don't think, becomes habit, yes, but they don't go, oh, good, she got off because I kicked out and now I'm going to do that all the time. It doesn't really work that way. So sometimes it's just the horse getting a little bit louder on his opinions and saying, hey, maybe we should step it down one, because it might be different to another horse that you start. Or
I think that's good advice. If it gets to that stage, is go back to where it was good with you and the horse. Go back to that point where things were good, and then you've got to rebuild on that.
You should always leave your horse in a better place than when you found it. So that's what I always remember. I said to people, if that's happening to you on the saddle, take them back to something that you and the horse are good at, and walk out of the arena like a champion. Don't finish on a bad note. So if you think you're pushing it too much, or the horse feels that you ask him more than he can handle, step it back a little and walk out of the arena with something that he might be very good at and you are good at, and you both walk out positive. You don't walk out sort of disliking each other. It's your responsibility to leave the horse each session better off than when you found it. So if you're paying somebody, if you're seeing somebody that every time the horse is worse off, then ask for your money back, ask for a refund. I would. But, So.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to leave the conversation with you, Carlos. And thank you. And I'm sure there's going to be another opportunity that we can explore.
Happy to do so.
Yeah, and maybe lovely. We'll do some things out at Whispering Acres.
It'll be nice. I'm sure we can organize something.
Wonderful idea. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we can have like a face-to-face chat for the ones that can around Victoria. They can. We might be able to do some live kind of thing for people that are away from in other states or overseas. So
where is your property, Carlos?
It's in Kilmore, Victoria.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not far from me, I found out.
No, it's around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you so much, Carlos. Thank you.
Thanks
so
for
much.
having me. And just want to say before I go, like a big thank you and wish you all the viewers, listeners, all the best, and God bless and look after yourself.
And same to you
Same
and your
to
family.
you, Carlos. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Drive
Bye,
safe.
Carlos.
I will. See ya. Bye-bye.
Don't
Bye.
forget Whispering Acres website,
.com.
and
Yeah.
you can learn more about what Carlos does. And
there's also, before I go, there's also online videos too that you can watch. You can sign up to watch. I always put all horses that are in training, so the Brumby features a lot too. So
that's great.
Anyway, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
and
Carlos.
Bye,
have a good night.
Carlos. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Wow, that was terrific.
Oh, so interesting. So many complimentary words. Just beautiful.
Well, it's not hard to understand why when you spend some time with Carlos and it's a philosophy. It's not anything more than that, which is great. So Karren, thank you so much for joining us tonight again.
No worries.
No worries.
Thank you.
And yeah, great that you were able to get a couple of questions in with Carlos as well.
Look, it was very interesting listening to his methodology with working with horses.
Yeah.
When he came up and said that he had a hand raised or an orphaned Brumbie, I thought, oh, good, because I've got two of the squirts, two of them that are there isn't that fear. There never has been, because I'm the one with the bottle or the bucket of milk. So that makes it all a bit different.
It does. But anyway, we're going to move from what we've been talking about with Carlos onto Karren now. So the focus is on you, Karren. And for those that don't know Karren, she wears many hats, and I'd have to read off a long sheet of paper as to all the studies that Karren has actually done. But Karren, I guess we would really like to talk about what you do, and that is with all the research that you've done on Brumby gut health and parasites and all that sort of thing. So give a little introduction about yourself.
Thank you very much. Jack of all trades and master of none might be the fitting phrase.
No, that's not true.
No, that's not true at all.
My thesis was parasitology with wild horses, and in particular comparing the desert Brumbies to the alpine or subalpine Brumbies in regards to their worm burdens, which is something that I did over a course of a couple of years. And it was very interesting. They did have some differences due to the aridity and dryness in the desert versus the green and lush situation in the mountains, snowy mountains.
So how does that affect the worm burdens from the arid to the lush? What are the differences?
Well, basically it comes down to the benefits for the parasite. So so I'm looking at nematodes, so the worm species, not bots or external parasites, but mainly, like strongyles. Strongyles are the most pathological worm, although there's several different ones that, have different effects. Whereas all of them that have generally the same life cycle, which, so the eggs are laid in the gut by breeding worms in the gut, passed out in the manure, which goes out onto the pasture, and it's there that it becomes infective. So, another horse comes along and grazes the manure or that area, and the eggs have hatched in the manure. The larvae generally crawl up the blade of grass and sit there waiting to be ingested by the next host or the next horse in this case. And then it starts again. So the eggs only hatch the eggs can remain viable. And I'm just going to talk generally here in regards to strongyles, because each worm species will be different. But just for simplicity, I'll just, so eggs are viable for a couple of years, depending on climate region you're in.
Wow.
And so they can sit there and when suitable, the environmental conditions become suitable, the eggs will hatch and you'll have a spate of worm infection in your horses.
Yeah.
But in the wild situation, that's what I wanted to know, what's going on. So I might say, your horse in a stable or a yard situation, you might see it eating manure, and people will ask me, it's going to get wormy. And it's like, no, it's not going to get, it's not something you really want to see, your horse eating manure, but they do it because they need something. We think it's repulsive, but, that's nature. And a lot of species will do it. They're not going to get infected by worm eggs that are sitting in that manure. The only infective stage is that larvae at what we call a third stage of development. So it must be that larval stage that makes it infective. Okay. So, and that's a short window that the larvae will develop. It's sunny, it's just had a rain or a heavy dew, so that it's moist, it's a nice warm day or whatever. The eggs hatch, the larvae develops over a few days, and it climbs the blade of grass on the pasture. And then the horses come along and graze it, and then that is the only infective stage. Yeah. So that period of time for survival of that little worm larvae that's sitting on the blade of grass is only around a week, depending on temperature, et cetera, et cetera. So that is why I expected to find a difference in worm burdens between the snowy Brumbies and the desert Brumbies, because of the difference in climatic conditions that makes it suitable for those worm eggs to hatch and become larvae and infect the horse.
So is it more prevalent in the lush grassy areas versus the arid? What's been your findings?
I found it more seasonal in the desert areas, obviously. Okay. So it was dry, it's obviously very hot, very dry for most of the year. And when I refer to it as desert, I'm looking at particularly west and southwest of Alice Springs. So I just refer to it as the desert, even though there's a lot of different types of vegetation out there. But generally, it's hot, it's dry, and whereas the snowy mountains, it's just perfect for horses and perfect for worms. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and obviously, like up in the Cosy, because they get the big freeze and the snow and the minus conditions up there, that would obviously impact as well on the viability of these lovely little things that are sitting on that bit of grass waiting.
Yes. Well, obviously that they won't hatch, so the eggs are then retained in that frozen manure. Now, I didn't do any really involved complex tests on that manure like I could have done, but it's field work, so I can only do so much on the road or in the mountains. But generally in winter they were still shedding eggs, which meant, but winter we have small strongyle infection in our domestic horses, so at this time of year you've got small strongyle infection, which cyathostomosis, if anyone's heard of the term, where our the small strongyles just the larvae embed in the mucosal lining of the gut, and we worm them, but we don't. Not many of our wormers, other than moxidectin or Equest, will kill those embedded larvae.
Yeah, right. So with all the work and research that you've done, how do you see that in benefiting the knowledge of the Brumbies, and how could that knowledge also help maybe some of the domestic horses?
Right, yes. Well, that's where it all stemmed, is looking at the wild horses and wild lifestyles. I mean, that's obviously how they were intended to live. With it, you know, that's just how they are. So that's why I wanted to look at the natural horse and then glean as much as I could from that to make management of our domestic horses. I know hopefully we'd learn so much more. Well, I have personally, but that was what I wanted to write about, was to take that knowledge that we might glean from these wild horses and then find ways to better manage, look after our domestic horses.
And I think one of those ways that a lot more people are going towards is, and that's your field of expertise, is actually looking under a microscope at what you find in the manures, and, you know, should you be using a wormer at this time, and what type of wormer should you be using, or you might not need a wormer at all.
Exactly, yes. So confirm before you worm, basically.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's yeah, catchy. So we used to 40 years ago, a lot of us, or the tradition was, you know, the farrier comes, we pull out a wormer and worm the horse. We were using too much worming chemical on our horses, and that's just not what I say. That's scientific literature will back that up. And because of that, we got resistance. So large strongyles were then the big concern. Pathogenically, large strongyle infection was really having an impact on domestic horse or on our horses. Now it's more like strongyles are the big killer or concern. So we overused our wormers, and the parasites got resistant to the wormers. And now we've only got one more tool in the box, which is moxidectin, and nothing else on the horizon that the public, well, I'm not sure what's out there. COVID sort of put a just stopped everything for the moment with these companies. They're all working on ivermectin based, testing ivermectin I put out for COVID. So ivermectin is everyone would have heard of ivermectin. It's what we use generally to knock our horses' worm burdens over, and it's very effective. But in the eastern states particularly, there is resistance being shown. So that's why we rotate our chemicals. So, abamectin, moxidectin, fenbendazole, all the other chemicals that we can use.
Karren, there's one feedback from Jay. As a responsible and horse owner, I always drench our domestic horses before and after going to the mountains for the benefit of our domestic horses and Brumbies.
Oh, I'm glad someone's brought that up. I'll just open to say that I would take all my horses up and graze them where the Brumbies are, so that they could pick up as many of those parasites from the Brumbies as possible, because those Brumbies obviously haven't been treated with wormers, and so they don't have any resistance. All those worms that are occurring up there are really sensitive to anything, any of our ivermectins, abamectins, anything, because they haven't been knocked by that. They haven't been knocked out. So, as far as worming your horse before you go to the mountains, let it graze up there, and and pick up those horse worms, those Brumbie worms, and bring them home and let them inspect your pasture. I know that sounds really weird, and there might be a number of people now going, wow, what's this cheeky babe on? But it's the principle of refugia. So
well, sorry, go ahead, Marilyn.
Okay, thank you, Renee. From Kathy, Karren, I recently saw a post on the Barmah page referring to low worm count. Someone did a worm count on the Brumbies. Would this be location or season?
Well, I've just done a study on the Barmah Brumbies. Two wonderful, weird ladies sent me a heap of horse manure. Thank you, Renee and Kay.
I was glad.
You're very welcome. That was quite a day of poo collecting, and Kay and I just worked brilliantly together, and we got a really good system because you needed to know what Brumbie did what poo.
Oh, yes. Now, this is research COVID style, and I love it because I don't even know where we are with borders at the moment. I'm in South Australia, so all the Brumbies are over there in Victoria and New South Wales. So, you know, I'm stuffed really. So Kay and Renee went out and collected the manure and sent it to me, and I've spent the week doing FECs, which is the fecal egg counts, and just having a look at what's going on in these Barmah Brumbies.
What did you find? Because we don't know anything yet. This is
no, I know. I'm very.
This is
sorry,
a revelation.
I'm. Yes. Is it okay if I reveal your results on Zoom? Right.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, it was very interesting. There was generally there was only 2 horses out of 10 samples that had an extremely high count, which wasn't all that high as I've seen in other places. Right. So I'm talking over 1,500 is like extremely high and is common. It's not uncommon in Brumbie mobs. The highest you had in Barmah was 800.
Oh wow, that's great.
And that came from a stallion that you sent a photo of.
Yeah.
And I wish I could do this, but I'm not show you the photo of the stallion and compare it to the FEC count that I found. But I can't do that because I'm just not that tech savvy. But anyway,
do you know what number that Brumbie was?
I think it was number 6.
Number 6. Okay, number 6. I've probably got him on my phone somewhere.
I'll just read your notes. I made.
Yeah, read it out.
Oh, you've gone sideways. That's all right.
My phone's just gone flat. Hang on, I might drop out here.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you can see that.
I think Karen's dropped out. Her phone's gone flat. So hopefully she's plugging in her phone.
Okay, that's Brumbie number 6. Look who it is.
Who is it?
Spooky Boy. He's called Spooky Boy.
Really?
Yeah. That's number 6.
Okay.
Oh, well, we'll just have to wait because we were just getting to the nitty-gritties of all of our field work that Kay and I did for a full day of well, we had to find the Brumbies first. We didn't find any for quite a few hours, and then we had to wait for one to do its movement.
I thought you'd enjoy that question, which I thought was well timed, actually.
I just hope Karren hasn't done a runner on us.
No, I think her phone dropped out. So she's hopefully plugging it. So and there is another question here, but I guess we'll have to ask Karren, and it's from Tracy, who's asking about a completely different area. Tracy, we have a group of Brumbies in North Queensland, always wondered how they survive with the larvae situation and lifespan because of worms. Do they have some kind of resistance? But what do you think, Renee?
This is not my area of expertise.
Mine neither. But if you think what Karren was saying, it depends on the lushness of the grass. Maybe there would be a difference in there. But come on, Karren, come back so you can answer this really.
There's nothing like being live on these things, is there?
No, what a shame.
Oh, if I could dance or do a song, I'd fill in time, but I can't
Me
do either
too.
of those.
So I'll give some feedback. Jay said, whoa. And then such dedicated Brumby supporters you are. Here she is.
Oh, Karen's
and Kathy
coming back.
said, if we don't get Karren back, please let her know that I found all this very interesting. And so there you go, Karren.
Okay, Karren is connecting. She's
coming back.
She's coming back.
Yay. Because we've got that question about the we'll deal with Barmah. Are you here, Karren?
Yes.
Okay.
You're back?
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened then. My phone just went completely black.
But we can't see you. Let me see.
See me.
Can't see you. No, you haven't got your camera. You got to switch your video on.
Yeah. Go down to the little video and start.
And then we'll be able to see you.
It's saying I cannot start the video because the host has disabled it.
No. Change role. Make co-host. Yes. That might do the trick.
Okay.
There you go. You'll be here. So have you got that picture there?
Oh, there we are.
Renee?
Okay.
You're back. You're back.
I'm very sorry about that, people. I really don't know what.
That's all right. But Karren, I've actually got a photo up on the screen. That is Brumby number 6.
Right, that's the photo.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Can you zoom in on him so we can get a look at his body score? Right. You can't zoom into screen. No, that's all right. This stallion was in great condition. I would give him a body score of 4.
I'd give him a 4.
Yeah.
I'd give him a 4.
I had to zoom right in and try and get a good look at him, and I gave him a 4.
Oh, there you go.
It. Look at that for body condition. Now, this stallion had a FEC total of 835.75 eggs per gram. He was loaded. So he was in the very high end bracket.
Right.
And there was a chestnut colt.
Yeah. Do you know what number he was?
From Woodcutter area.
Number
7.
Yeah, okay. Let me just, you're going to be so impressed because we have actually got action shots of these Brumbies actually doing their poo sample for you.
Now, although this particular photo, you have to look careful just to get some idea of his body condition.
Yeah.
But it's, he's a little on the light side.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I sort of got a 2 to 3.
Yeah.
2 to 3 body score.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
Yes.
So, he was a bit ordinary, not too, he wasn't emaciated, but he was light.
He was.
Now, he had a worm burden of less than 1 worm egg per gram. Yep.
Wow.
He had bugger all. Sorry. That's not
well,
very
that's,
he had nothing worth concerning ourselves with.
That's
I did his
remarkable.
test 3 times to be sure of false negatives, but he did not have a worm burden, but he was very in very ordinary condition. Now, the point I'm trying to make here, compare him to our bay stallion number 6 from the muster yards, in absolutely beautiful condition, but he had a very high worm count. Now, a lot of people will look at a horse and go, oh, that's not got worms, or that's a very wormy horse. And what I'm just pointing out here is that that is not a very safe. You shouldn't rely on just looking at a horse's body score to determine if it's wormy.
Yeah. I mean, I wish Kay was I think Kay's still there. Yeah, hi,
Yeah.
Kay. Kay would be the best one to talk on this, but
Oh, I'd love her to. But
yeah,
does she want to? I've
don't
asked her
know.
to talk. I don't want to put her on the
No, I don't either. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, those two areas from those two stallions, Karren, both extreme different areas within the Barmah National Park.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Is what was the vegetation? What was the areas? Woodcutter. I'm just looking at the areas.
Okay, so the one that had, you know, the lovely, well-rounded rump and body score of a good 4 down at the muster yards, the Brumbies down in that area would have a lot more access to a lot more grass, like grass. The one that's up at the woodcutter, it is much drier. It is the horses really have to work hard to find something to eat. So they would be traveling a lot more distances, I'm thinking, to actually go and find their food. Whereas the ones down at the muster yards, they are a little bit more not
well off.
Yeah, that they are.
In a good paddock.
Yeah, they are in good paddocks down there, and they would be a lot more condensed.
That would explain the condition of the chestnut colt,
right? Yes,
at woodcutters then, because he was in poorer condition because there's less feed, more distance, more activity. Yeah. Whereas little fatty stallion at the muster yards doesn't have to do much at all.
No, he does not. And also, I guess keeping in mind that we are in the dead of winter. So, you know, conditions, it's not unusual to see a Brumbie in that condition anyway.
No, yes,
so we've got a question now from Tracy. We have a group of Brumbies in North Queensland, always wondered how they survive with the larvae situation and lifespan because of worms. Do they have some kind of resistance? Are you familiar with that, Karren?
Well, that's what I'm very interested in. Is is there some immunity that immunity, some kind of a resistance that's developing in the Brumbies to the worms?
Well, Tracy said she's happy to send manure down to you. Not sure that many people know of our Brumbies near Cairns. They are in a lush area.
Cairns. Yes, they'd be in great area with lush grass and nice warm weather.
Well, Tracy,
that would be very interesting.
Yeah, yes. Well, Tracy, if you go onto Brumbie Tracks, you can contact Karren via Brumbie Tracks, send her a private message is the best shot. And I'm sure, well, those sounds of things, she's quite happy to get the manure. And we had a message here from Kay. He said, yes, that's right. Now it's lost. I've lost it. Oh, that's okay. She said that's right.
Yeah. I'm stepping on your path a little bit here, Marilyn, but Lisa has made a really good comment. Can you read out Lisa's question? Right down the bottom.
If I can. Oh, Lisa, would that be because, okay, talking about, I think it's number 7, was it?
The fatty at the muster yards.
Yeah, the whatever. Would that be because around the muster yards, other domestic horses have been around that area? That is Barmah muster yards. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, right, the stallion. That's right. Number 6. Sorry, I'm getting my areas.
So the one down at the muster yards, Karren, and I mean you've been there, you would know the muster yards is heavily frequented by domestic horses a lot of the times. Unfortunately not anymore because we can't take our horses to Barmah. But that is a really good point, Lisa, because that is a heavily frequented area of domestic horses.
Now I'll just go back to there was 4 samples out of 10 from the muster yards.
Right.
A chestnut filly, a bay stallion, another bay stallion, and the bay foal, number 10. Now, the foal had an FEC of 760 eggs per gram, and a hell of a lot of roundworm infection in there. So the eggs look different. So I was able to find that he had a very large burden, heavy burden of worms, of both strongyles and parascarus, which is the roundworm. So he was, yeah, but he looked okay in the photo.
Yeah, they all do.
Photo, yeah. So that foal was doing okay, and I see this a lot in foal, or let's say weanlings up to a year old. That they might have a heavy worm burden, but they're doing okay. Then there's some that aren't doing okay. Not that we really want to let our foals or youngsters get infected, but I personally think that infection, not heavy, but letting them have some sort of an infection and is maybe beneficial for them. Now, I've got to be careful here because I'm not a vet. I do not have any veterinary qualifications, so I'm not by any means telling anybody to allow their horses to carry worms. But if I can get my message across with the parasitology side and let people make up their own minds, or get a gist of, you know, dogs are meant to have fleas. They've evolved together. Horses and worms, same thing. You know, it goes together. But it's what we should manage and how we control it. Now, with the mustards, going back to that, the bay foal had very high. The chestnut filly was in the low to moderate bracket. Another bay stallion was he was low. He only had 167 eggs per gram. And then we had number 6, the chunky bay stallion. Yeah, beautiful horse. He really took my eye, that one. 835, as we discussed. Yeah. So it was a mixed bag, really. So in regards to the question about the horse riders going there, that's the principal area that at the muster, I suppose. Yeah, I've never been to the Barmah muster, so that you all get together with your horses there, and so there'll be a lot of cross contamination.
Well, there's hundreds of horses. Yeah.
So they're bringing in their parasites, and the Brumbies are, dropping their parasites. So it says everyone's mixing it up, which I think potentially, not a bad thing.
Yeah, not a bad thing.
I've got to be very careful what I say here. So,
well, Kay has brought up too, Renee. She's saying Granny's foal, Gina.
Yes.
So is Gina one of the Brumbies that were?
Yes, Gina was one of them. I'm just trying to think what number she was. Oh dear. This might take a little bit to find.
I think Kay must be interested to find out.
Oh, what number was Gina? I've got, oh, here we go. That'd be number 1, I think. Kay, this is right. Are we getting a reaction from Kay?
Not so far.
Okay. I think it's number 1.
What's Gina's story?
Oh, Kay needs to be here.
I know. Kay, why don't you come on?
I don't know what. Maybe next time we're going to get Kay on so she can talk.
Definitely.
Because Kay is the one with all the knowledge on these Barmah Brumbies.
She's still there.
Wonderful to hear her. Yes.
Yeah.
She could tell us a lot.
Oh,
if she turns her, Kay, you're not on screen, but you can talk if you switch off your microphone. Hang on, if you want to. If you switch on your mic, which you can do.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Kay.
Hello.
Hello.
Now I'm trying to find all the photos of that one that you showed me.
Yes.
Number 1.
Yeah. That's not the foal. The foal's Granny's foal, Janine.
Janan.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got a photo here, Kay.
Oh, I had a photo somewhere. I'm trying to find it, Renee.
Oh. No, I
I'm
haven't.
trying to
No, I don't.
find
I
it.
don't have a photo. Sorry, people, for holding you up.
Oh, well,
But
that's
so, Karren, in terms of getting a decent sort of sample size, how many more manure samples do you need from us?
You're sitting down, right?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
What sort of sample size do you need?
Yeah, so a good percentage of the population. Now, 10 is that was great. It gave me an insight as to the
Well,
situation.
there's only about 250 of them there, Karren.
Exactly, which is what I was thinking. So, yeah, 50. A sample of 50 would be good. Do you really think there's 250 left in Barmah?
I'm going on the side of being generous.
Oh, generous, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you've sent me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas.
Yeah.
So samples from 5 areas.
I can get you some more.
What
I'll
you
have
were
to do
doing?
footwork. Yeah, well,
Do
I'll
what?
go up. Yeah, I can get you some more.
Yeah, look, whenever you're up there,
Kay's there all the time.
yeah, that would be great.
The gates are shut now.
Oh, the gates are shut.
Yeah.
Will
For
that
how long?
stop
Get up
you?
there. Beg your pardon?
Is Barmah closed?
Yep.
For how long?
Till it dries up, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
gates are shut.
Right.
You can't get
Well,
in.
you've only got a footwork.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah, that's all right.
yeah.
I got my gum boots.
And then comes spring. So, I mean, doing this seasonally
Okay.
and having a good sample size. 10
Yeah.
gives me an idea, but
Yeah.
the larger the sample size, the more weight is in our results.
Yeah, that
If
makes
that makes
sense.
sense.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I
know
mean,
different.
that was what Kay and I were able to achieve in basically a full day from
Yeah,
about.
we had the boys with us too.
Oh, the boys were the ones that holding us up.
Yeah, I know, but they sat in the car and waited for us to.
Come back to the car with samples.
Oh, right. Yeah.
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 And it's hard work, isn't it? Because you've got to get the photo of the horse.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Although-
when I worked it out, you get the photo first. You take the photos of all the horses and then wait for one to shit.
Right.
Otherwise, if you
okay.
wait for it to shit and then you walk off.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
Yeah.
when I
thinking.
Yeah. So
when I
what
was up,
you go
when
on?
I was doing the snowy mountains and the desert, I can appreciate your frustrations because I was just doing that constantly, and it's not easy. Then you get to sit and watch horses just doing horse stuff,
Yeah.
and that is where you become sort of intrigued by their behaviour and,
Oh, yeah.
and getting an idea of wild horse behaviour and
Yeah.
society, really.
Yeah. I mean, we really enjoyed it, didn't we, Kay?
Yeah, we enjoyed toppling around, don't we, Renee?
We sure did. So yeah, we're happy to go out and be part of your volunteer research team and get some more samples for you when we can.
That stallion at the 2 stallions at the muster yards, they're in good nick, aren't they?
Mm.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa Williams just said, okay, I love your sense of humour.
So bay stallion number 8, he was in
Renee,
good
who's number 8,
from the
Renee?
muster yard.
Yeah, keep talking.
So he was in good condition too. I can't recall number 8.
Let me flick through. 5.
At the moment, I'm doing a spreadsheet of body score versus FEC totals. I haven't got that finalised yet. Otherwise, I'd be able to show you that.
Got 9.
I've got 7.
Who's 8, Renee?
I think 8 might be one of the ones that you sent me on your phone.
Was it?
Yeah.
But anyway, Bay
Anyway.
Stallion number 8.
What area was it from?
Musty Yards.
Oh,
And he had an FEC of 167. So in a nutshell, they were all over the shop. There was
yeah, they were.
very varied, but I just chose the 2 that stood out, being the fat, chunky Bay Stallion
Mhm.
with a high worm burden, and the little skinny, should I say, the skinny little colt from Woodcote.
The one that was light on.
Very light
A
on.
lot of
and
weeds
he
and that
had-
up there, isn't there, Renee?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of
Well,
You've got
weeds.
to pick the grass in between the weeds.
Yeah, but the larvae, they're not fussy about the plant that they're
Okay.
climbing on to be picked up. Whatever works, as long as they get ingested in
Yeah.
that 5 to 7 day time frame, just so that they survive and get to, move on. And
Karren, we've got another question here from Jay. Is the static tail a good indicator of worm counts for domestic and or now domesticated Brumbies?
a static tail.
That's the question. Is the
No,
static?
I've not heard of that at all.
Okay.
Not at all. What? I don't even know what's referring.
Does that mean static as in still, or is it static as in
No.
electricity?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Electricity, that would mean.
Right. No, I'm not
okay.
aware of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
There. Well,
So-
maybe we should put Jay on too, but we can all. I was told.
Yeah,
Oh, Jay is saying. Oh, I was told static tail indicated worms, electrostatic.
Right.
Oh,
No, I've not heard of that. I use my horse's tails when they get all staticky to know that we've got thunderstorms or rain coming.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's
But
true.
I haven't got any foolproof results from that yet.
Okay. Well, there's another research that you need to do then.
Yeah, I don't know how you do
staticky
that.
tail means worms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yep.
Mm.
Well, we're learning all the time, aren't we? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
never say never.
Yeah, well, Karren, you're quite a regular on these things, and I just love the variation of conversations that we have from you. We've gone from the broad-tooth rat to manure at the musty yards and worm burdens. I mean, you're an extremely versatile package to have.
Really, no, it is. I'm. As soon as I started traveling and doing this research with the Brumbies, it's amazing what's out there to be learnt. So right place, right time, or the opportunity knocked and I took it, and I've never learned more about horses than I have in the 6 years that I've been wandering around the country looking for horses and horse food, I suppose.
Wow. Yeah.
So you've got another offer here, and I don't know where Jay is located, but Jay is also offering to collect samples and send them to you, Karren. So Jay, if you wanted to contact Karren via Brumby Tracks as well, yes, that's a Facebook group that Karren established 7 or 8 years ago. I think it started out more as a personal blog, but it's evolved into one of the larger information sites, I guess.
That is just absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? I just had no idea of Facebook.
Oh, Snowy Brumbies. Yeah.
Oh, that's where Jay's from?
Jay's
Right.
talking about
That's great.
snowy Brumby. So yeah, there you go. So Jay, contact Karren via Brumby Tracks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the
Excellent.
pity about there's going to be a bit of a negativity in all these people sending me Brumby manure is that I haven't got a good excuse to get on the road. But unfortunately, New South Wales is
Shut.
out for anyone that across the border at the moment. So
It's going to be for a while by the sounds of things. So maybe it's a good thing. So that, and Lisa also had heard about static tails as well.
Oh, right.
She had also heard that maybe it's
Well, maybe if Lisa and who was the other lady that about the static tails?
I think it was Jay, wasn't it?
Jay, I think it was Jay. Maybe they could do some leg work or finger work for us and maybe find some papers on it. Maybe someone's done something and share it with Karren.
I'm just reading the questions now. Sorry, I've just found them.
I didn't know you could see them. God,
yeah, if I go into the Q&A.
Yeah.
So Jay and Lisa have both said about the static tails.
Yeah, they have.
Righty-ho. Well, I'll have to find out more about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks, girls.
Yeah. I came through Pony Club and vet channels. Well, there you go.
Right. Okay. Well, I've never heard of it. So there's another one. They're very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think,
but
Renee, we now...
It's just a very, it's a very good way of judging or getting an idea of the gut health of your horse without having to go to extreme lengths to do so.
Yeah. Karren, I might be putting myself on the edge out here, but considering what sample size that you have from Barmah at the moment, would that show a bit of an indication that there is not an overpopulation issue within Barmah?
Good question, Renee. Very good question.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just thinking that if there was, high population density issues, would you expect to see a much higher egg count?
Well, okay, so I'll just compare this now to one of the densest areas, horse population.
Okay, the bin, daycare, and put her in there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Jerry in the background.
That's Jerry.
Jerry, right. So a dense horse population area of Long Plain where the parasite burdens were very high. I'm not going to say that that's because the population was too high. I'm just saying the population was high in comparison to Barmah.
Okay.
Let's say. And so the results that I'm looking at from Barmah are generally, if I was to put this on a linear graph, it would be that all horses are low to low moderate rather than extreme. I mean, we had the two that were extreme and both were from the Mustards, which, as we've discussed, is a a very frequented area, or was, with domestic horses. So yes, that could explain that. Whereas the other areas were just scanning the results, very low to moderate burdens, which in a lot of those cases, I wouldn't worm the horse if it was a domestic one.
Yeah,
I tend to only worm my horses. I'm talking about my personal horses now. Again, I'm not trying to tell anyone how to do it, how to manage their worms and horses, but anything under 300 I just don't worm them. Whereas anything over that, then I think, okay, that can be wormed. And also bots are something that don't show up in FECs. I cannot tell if a horse has got bots or not. And the only way to know if your horse has got an internal bot problem is to post-mortem it, which is a bit extreme. So we just don't know. So for that reason, it's beneficial to always use an ivermectin or a mectin-based wormer autumn.
Yeah, right at the right time. Yeah.
About autumn to winter, depending on your region, and that'll get rid of spots.
Spots, yeah.
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 So I just thought I'd point that out because some people say that you know, I said they didn't have a very high worm burden, but when they wormed the horse, it was loaded with bots. So bots, you just cannot tell.
Right. Very good.
Yes. So getting back to that question that you had, Renee, is with more samples that would give an idea of population density in regards to area. Yeah. Available area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that gives us something to work on.
Sustainable population is where you're going.
That's exactly that's exactly right. Thank you, Karren. You hit it on the head. So if Kay and I can do something to make more of this noted, that the populations within Barmah are sustainable, there's no need to be doing anything with them.
How much mixing between these 4 areas? Is it 4 areas?
Yeah.
How much mixing of the herds is there?
There wouldn't be a lot.
We'll put Kay on.
Yeah, Kay would be best to answer that one.
Kay?
Yes, what was that? I didn't hear the question.
How much mixing of the herds between the different areas you sampled is there?
How many?
How much mixing between herds? So the musty-yards, woodcutters, etc. Do the herds
mixing?
do they interact, or are they geographically isolated?
No, none of the ones that we did would have interacted, would they, Renee?
I don't think so, and that's why we chose those locations, so they were all completely separate.
And the other ones stay up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So they are distinct, separate groups,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's what. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. And how many more areas do you think there are?
A lot. A lot.
There's a lot.
I could get my imaginary horse, Renee. He's still there.
Your imagine. Yeah, well, yes, we could do that one, couldn't we, Kay? We'll send.
He never goes.
No, he stays in the same spot all the time. Sorry, this is a little bit of an in-joke, and I'll have to share what it is, but
you will.
Kay, you can explain it very quickly because we'll have to wrap this up within the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. Well, I was driving up the sandwich track and I saw this dark horse out the side on my right-hand side.
I know what this is.
Yeah, this dark horse out the right-hand side. And I thought, oh, he's waiting to cross the road, you know, waiting for us to go past across the road. It's wood. It's made out of wood. It's a bit of wood.
It's a piece of
tree. Like a black horse, doesn't it, Renee?
It does. It actually.
And people say, oh, the poor Brumbies by himself. Oh, and I kept trying to tell them, no, it's. But I drove past and nobody else has noticed it. You noticed it, didn't you, Renee?
I certainly did. And I think, Kay, you should send that photo to Karren because Kay drives out there frequently with Jerry and she's like, oh, there's that horse standing there again. But it's actually
does look like a
tree that has blackened and it's in the shape of a horse.
Oh my God. How perfect.
It is. And I thought it was a horse until I realised it wasn't, but he's there all the time.
We really should get.
So I took a photo of him and sent it to show Renee. And then I put it up on the page, and people, and I kept explaining to them, no, it's only an imaginary horse, but they wouldn't take it. They just,
they thought it was real.
Horse. Oh, isn't he beautiful?
Why is he there on his own?
Why is he there on his own? He's just an imaginary high. Yeah.
We really
so-
should get you on to do, tell us more about your adventures in Barmah, Kay.
Me,
Yeah, we'll work on that one. We're going to do that, Kay,
next time.
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So, Marilyn, I'll throw it back to you. You opened it. You can close this.
Okay, well,
Fabulous.
Karen, thank you for coming again and joining us, and
Thank you.
for
It's
your
been
time.
interesting.
It's
It's
been
good.
well, it's been fascinating. I've learned a great deal, and it's really interesting, and I can see that everybody else has as well. So there you go. Everyone's interested in your work and what you're doing. So we'll be looking
Please
forward to
confirm
hearing more.
before you worm. That's the
Confirm
message.
before you worm.
Yeah, confirm before you worm. That's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
well, thank you. And I think it's been a great night. And thank you, Renee, for being the host tonight, because
Welcome.
you did a really good job. So,
Oh, well, it
And
was
very
easy. I've
interesting.
got such great people to
Yeah.
talk with, and
all right.
it's easy.
And
I'd
for-
love to do this one with Carlos. You know, this
Yeah.
what you were suggesting, going
Yeah.
to Whispering
Whispering Acres.
Acres.
I'd love
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would
Yes. Well,
Please make that happen, Renee. and
I
Marilyn.
will. Oh God, my chair just went out from underneath me.
Oh, God, there's something to work on, Renee.
Yeah, I'll certainly talk further with Carlos, and we'll see that we can slot something in, because I think it'd be fantastic to do
Oh,
something
that'd be
live
Very interesting.
at Whispering
yes,
Acres.
yes,
Oh,
very
and so
much.
we got a little private message from Kathy to say thank you, everyone. My first Zoom webinar, and I loved it. Well, we hope you come to the next ones.
Tell Kathy, tell more people. We want more people to be informed and educated on
Yeah,
what's going out there with the Brumbies, and that's the reason that Marilyn, myself, and Karen and Carlos and Mel, who's done these webinars before. We've had Craig Downer, we've had Scott Beckstead, we've had Ariane Wallach. We do these to try and educate, and just to put some better information out there for supporters to learn and understand. So thank you.
Would
been
Andrea
great.
Well
do
done,
one?
girls. Well done, Renee, and well done, Marilyn. You're doing a
okay.
fantastic
Karen.
Thanks,
job.
Karen.
Thank
and
you.
Sylviane said
Bye.
thanks from
Bye,
Sylviane.
Kay.
Bye.
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 Bye,
See you,
Kay.
Karen.
Waving.
Until next time.
Bye.
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 Karen. Karen,
Bye.
wave.